Hello and welcome back to LLM 474, Constitutional Issues in the Workplace. This is the introduction for week 5, which introduces to us section 1983, 42 U.S.C. section 1983, which is the enforcement statute by which constitutional rights are enforced. In weeks 5 and 6, we will explore certain aspects of 1983 liability. But before we do that, it might be useful to say a few words about Section 1983, what it is and what it does, for those of you who may not be as familiar with it as others. If you like to think of analogies, constitutional rights are the bullet. Section 1983 is the gun that fires the bullet. 1983 is the procedural statute by which constitutional rights are enforced against government. The procedures available under 1983 do raise a number of issues, particularly issues concerning who can be liable, concerning who is immune from liability, and concerning what damages can be awarded and against whom. In week 5 of the course, we're going to take a short overview, if you will, of two of these concepts, just an introductory concept and the concept of liability. And we're going to trace the question of liability through several Supreme Court cases and then through a few lower court cases as well. The first case on the docket for this week is Iqbal, and I'm sure you've dealt with Iqbal in some of your other courses. Iqbal, of course, the famous or infamous case dealing with the standard of pleading, and Iqbal applies probably to all civil cases, but it happened to be a 1983 case, and so it gives us some insight into what the courts will expect in the pleading of 1983 cases. Moreover, however, Iqbal also gives us a look at supervisory liability under Section 1983. Under what circumstances may an employee's supervisor be liable for constitutional violations committed by that employee? And that becomes a rather important question and a rather difficult question at times in constitutional litigation. After Iqbal, we'll deal with a couple of other cases from the Supreme Court. City of Canton deals with the question of failure to train. When can an employer be liable for failing to train employees who then violate the rights of citizens? The County Commissioners versus Brown case deals with the Canton question in the context of hiring. When can a single hiring decision lead to liability for an employer if they hire an employee who violates somebody's constitutional rights? We will then explore the application of Iqbal and of these supervisory liability principles through 3 lower court cases, 3 federal appellate cases actually, which you'll get a chance to read as well. Let me say one other word about a case called Monell versus Department of Social Services. We're not reading the Monell case, perhaps we should have, but Monell is a thread that weaves its way through most of these cases. And what the Monell case says in a nutshell is that employers are liable, or government entities are liable, only for practices and policies that they carry out. In other words, if the rogue employee happens to violate someone's constitutional rights, the employer will not be held liable unless it can be shown that that violation was the result of a policy or a policy-making decision by someone in a position to make such decisions. This may sound a little bit abstract, but I'd like you to follow Monell through the cases that you read. It is cited, I think, in every case that we're reading for this week. And keep in mind that principle of municipal liability. There must be a policy or practice in place or a decision made by a policy-making employee in order to extend liability from the individual who violates rights to the employer, the municipality, or other government entity. So hopefully, if you have questions about that, we can clear those up in our discussion. But that's all by way of introduction to these materials, and I will see you online. Thanks very much.